Hey everybody, it's Dr. William Clark here, host of the Dr. William Clark podcast, creator of the Nonprofit Funding Strategies Academy, the place, your one-stop shop for strategies and master tips on fundraising and everything in between. Glad to be with you guys again. Today, we got Mr. Robert Jones, all the way from the Midwest, from Chicago, correct, sir?
Yeah.
He is from Chicago, and we're going to be talking about the importance of financial statements. And the funny thing is about this, well, it's not funny, but I think there's importance to this conversation because when and if you start raising serious money for your organization, and after you've taken my master class and you started implementing the things I've taught, you will start generating financial statements, and nonprofit foundations, rather partners, stakeholders are going to want to know what you're doing and how the money's rolling in and how it's being used. And so this conversation is really good. It comes at a good time for many of you who are working on your funding plans and need to continue to position yourself to tell your story to funders. But before we get started, Robert, just tell us a little bit about you. Tell us what people should know about you, and then we'll jump to the conversation at that point.
Okay. So again, my name is Robert Jones. I'm from Chicago, born and raised, and I've been in tax for about 10 years, a little over 10 years since I graduated with a master's in taxation. So when I started doing that, I was working at a big four firm, and I was doing very large nonprofit organizations like hospitals, colleges, and universities, large private foundations, and some large supporting organizations. So I was doing that for probably about 6 or 7 years. Then I decided to branch off and do my own, have my own business. And so that has been going well for me since. One of the things about me is that I not only do 990 returns or 990 PF returns, but I also have experience with charitable lead trust returns and charitable remainder uni trust returns. So I've been doing that pretty much my whole career. So that's some of the things about me. And I assist, of course, with the accounting for nonprofits when it comes to their profit and loss statements. Uh, in the nonprofit world, they call it statement of activity, statement of activity, statement of position, and fund accounting.
So ultimately, what you just said for people who are not in your world is that you do tax returns for all types of nonprofits.
Pretty
That's
much,
pretty much what I heard.
pretty much. Yep,
So,
yep.
so talk to us a little bit more about that because I think a lot of people might be surprised to know that nonprofits have to do returns. Um, just give us more insight as to why, how does it work, how often, etc.
Okay, good question. So if you are a nonprofit, you are classified by the IRS as a 501c3. You have to file a tax return every single year. Not only do you have to file the tax return every single year, if whatever state you're in, and I don't know every single compliance issues with states, but whatever state you are in, you have to file with the state every single year as well. For example, in Illinois, there are two situations where you have to file with the Attorney General office and you have to file with the Secretary of State and with the federal government. So a lot of times most people don't know that when it comes to the taxes. Of course, most of you know about what a 990N postcard is, what a 990EZ is, and what a regular 990 is. And those are based on revenue criteria. So if you are 50,000 or less, you would file what's called a 980 in postcard. If you make between 50,000 to 200, you fall into the requirement of a 990 EZ, and anything over that would be considered, you would have to file a regular 990. The problem I see and with a lot of small nonprofits is that they don't look at the number one problem is that they do not look at non-cash contributions as revenue when technically it is revenue. So when you think of revenue, stop thinking of a dollar sign necessarily, but think about you have to consider the non-cash piece of it as well. And the IRS does they ask you about that. So if you receive $51,000 of non-cash contributions, you technically should be filing a 990 easy instead of that regular 990 postcard.
Now, as a point of clarification, are the 990 series, is that what you're saying is our annual tax return that has to be filed, or is that a separate tax return form that we have to fill out?
Good question. That is the actual tax return, those series that we
Okay.
talked about. Yep.
So the 990 series are in fact the tax returns for
Hmm.
nonprofits that have to be filed every year. So point of clarification, if you miss, was it 3 years, then you risk losing your 501c3 status that you worked so hard to get.
That's correct. So if you miss 3 consecutive years,
3 consecutive years, yeah.
that's correct. Yep.
And so for the groups who and I just want to ask this question and we'll get back. If you do lose your 501c3 status, how difficult is it to get it back?
So you have a grace period to get it back. The grace period is 15 months. And then after that 15 months, you still have to, it's more favorable if you try to get it back within the 15 months. I'll say that. You still have to go through the same process of filling out a brand new 1023. But the turnaround to getting it back is a little easier. I'll say that. There's a lot of explanations that you have to give the IRS because you lost it, which opens yourself up to a little bit of an audit. So you have to think about those things too.
Yeah. So thanks for clarifying that. And so it's important for our audience, whether you're watching this in the masterclass or you're watching this or listening to this in the podcast, don't miss 3 consecutive years of
Yep.
filing one of the
Yep.
990 forms that Robert talked about. So Robert, within the fund nonprofit funding strategies academy, we talk about fundraising, we talk about cash infusion revenue quite a bit. That's all we talk about because obviously without revenue coming in, nonprofits can't function and operate. As nonprofits begin to raise money over time, whether if you're a newbie and you're starting out on a smaller scale, individual donations, smaller grants,
Mhm.
events, and all that other stuff, talk to us about what smaller nonprofits can do to begin logging those revenues and putting together the most simplest form and version of a financial statement.
Good question. So the sad part of it is that whether you are a $1 million operation or organization, or you bring in $20,000 a year, you have to have the same financial statements for the most part. And so some of those financial statements include what we call a statement of activity, which is more like your profit and loss statement, a financial position statement, which basically is your balance sheet, and the other one is a fund accounting system. So there's three different types of like financial statements, basically. Uh, the easiest way to get like these statements generated is using a accounting software tool. Excel is not an accounting software tool. I know a lot of people use it, and a lot of people may be good at it, but that doesn't generate financial statements uh, according to the gap procedure anyway. So the first thing is opening up a bank account, right? The second thing is finding a program that works for you. So some of the three that I like, but me personally, I love QuickBooks. That's one of them. So I'll talk about that one first. But the second one is called Aplos, Aplos. That one is a really good one as well. It's geared toward nonprofit, QuickBooks as well, if you request that one. The third one is called Nonprofit Plus Accounting Suite. Nonprofit Plus Accounting Suite. So those three are kind of like your top three, I would say, where a lot of nonprofits use. The beauty of those three is that what you do on the bank account, what you do in the bank account bridges into that software. And once it bridged in, your accountant would go in because he would have access. He would go in and he would categorize where those items should go. So a lot of times we see nonprofits who may do this themselves, maybe the organization president or even a treasurer. Um, they may do it themselves, but they may not be categorizing things properly. So you have to be really careful with that. You wouldn't want to put all of your eggs in one basket, meaning everything is in other business expenses. Well, what does that really mean? People want to see an itemized list of what you really spent money on. So that's really important.
Robert, let's go a little deeper here because
Okay.
I did want to talk about software, and I think what would be helpful so that people aren't bogged down. You obviously recommend QuickBooks. I want to jump into best practices a bit. And you started to talk about it because I think people are used to having a board member or the executive director jump in and categorize stuff. What role do you think a bookkeeper can play in helping categorize expenses?
Major role. Major role. The goal, the bookkeeper has the experience. If you really don't have that experience, or even willing to train yourself, I guess, but if you don't really have that experience, you could really like have your books look inaccurate, which leads to other problems. So I really think, you really should be like seeking the advice and contracting with a person that's a bookkeeper for nonprofits.
I oftentimes when I'm coaching people, particularly newbies
Mhm.
who are looking to get off the ground and they are struggling to do things themselves, I often advise people to hire staff, particularly from Fiverr.com. And the reason why I propose that is because it's a gig website. You find all types of talent on there. And for as little as $5, as much as whatever you're willing to pay, you'll quickly have staff. Would you recommend folks going to Fiverr and finding a bookkeeper once a month, once a quarter, going in, paying them whatever the fee is, 5, 10, 15, 20, $50 to clean up books within one of the software options you gave, QuickBooks, Applos, or Nonprofit Plus Accounting Suite? Would you recommend us going to Fiverr hiring staff, or would you recommend us going elsewhere?
100%. Honestly, I've never personally hired anyone from there, but I have the app on my phone, but I've heard great reviews, and I would definitely, especially starting out, definitely look to something like that.
Yeah, and I think the other perspective about why that might be a viable option for so many people is because you're in Chicago, I'm in Connecticut, and people listening all over the country, some all over the world. And the cool thing about Fiverr is that especially for just basic services like that, you can hire people who have a skill that is cross state lines, doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about trying to catch a Robert. Speaking of that, Robert, are you only licensed to practice in Chicago, or can you practice
Anywhere.
elsewhere, anywhere?
Yep.
Okay, so people can hire you to do bookkeeping, but they can hire you to do more advanced services around tax preparation, etc.
Except for legal, because I'm not a lawyer.
Okay,
So if they're looking for a lawyer, they need to find someone within their state.
within their state.
Yeah, lawyers can't practice cross states like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then just so people know, they can contact you. Now, let's talk more about best practices in between times when they hire the bookkeeper to, track expenses. What else can nonprofits, particularly newbies, smaller nonprofits, what can they do to keep things flowing appropriately until their team member comes on board every quarter to clean up the books?
The best thing is asking questions, right? Asking questions, doing a lot of self-education is a big deal. Personally, I think too, having some type of client relationship management tool, whether it's in-house, there's a lot of free ones out there. Whether it's in-house, kind of your own in-house tool, or want to have an expense to have one downloaded on your phone or your tablets. But I think that keeps things orderly, and also having the board to be orderly, right? So everyone has a position, everyone has a strength, and really using those strengths, especially in the beginning, because you're running a business at the end of the day, right? So, uh, it's a heart-based business in a way, but you're running a business, and so you want to make sure like everyone has their position and roles to do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I think that I think so many newbies feel the pressure to do everything.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I guess to divert for a moment, just from the core of the conversation, one of the things that's been happening quite a bit on social media and in the groups that we're a part of is you'll see people post about their needs,
Hmm.
but then will when the consultants pop up in the comments to say,
Hmm.
"Hey, call me, contact us," there is a not pushback, but there's a reservation to contact and
Hmm.
communicate with the professional. Talk to us about, you can go all nerd on this if you want to, but talk to
Okay.
us about the importance of hiring you as a specialist, as a consultant, and why it's more advantageous, much more affordable to hire you than to try to do things yourself.
Good question. This sums up in one word: budget. Honestly, if you before you even start the nonprofit, right, or maybe at the very beginning, if you have a budget, you would not be afraid to call me because you've
Wait,
already
or
done your
or me
research.
either. Let me throw me in
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah,
Let's
yeah, yeah. Forgot about you. Right, right. But you wouldn't be afraid
right,
because you know, okay, I have a budget. So
right.
I always tell them, especially the newbies, look up how much it costs to hire Dr. William or Robert
Mm-hmm,
Jones.
mm-hmm.
How much was something like that on average cost me? Put that in the budget. So that if you put 30 grand for an accounting services in the budget and I come back and tell you 29,000, you save $1,000 by hiring me.
It's true,
Right?
and it's not just that, but Robert, I think that is so good. I think there needs to be an evaluation of how much money we save you.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things
Mm-hmm.
I am an adamant believer of is a consultant, whether it's of your caliber, myself or others. When you hire us, you got to think beyond a service. You got to realize that you're hiring us to give you the cheat code to go from stage one of Mario to stage eight
Mm.
in 5 minutes or less.
Good
And for
point.
those who are of a certain age, you know what I'm talking about. You can go
Mm-hmm.
down a couple of tunnels, skip to level 8, and you
Yep.
can finish the game quickly. And that allows you to save on heartache, stress, unnecessary problems,
Right.
and it's cheaper to pay Robert, right, the $29,000. I don't know if that's a true number, but for the sake of argument, it's cheaper to pay him to do that than to try to do it on your own. Because what ends up happening, Robert, when people try to do your job, then they don't have time to work with me to raise money.
Right.
And the solution to all of this, trying to find money to pay you or even pay me, is to raise more money.
That's
Like
right.
right now, part of the conversation I'm having online is, we want to give every student laptops. Like, that's cool, but here's reality. Like, I just resubmitted a budget to one of my funders, 20 grand to buy new iPads, new iPad keyboards, and internet service. That's going to cost me 20 grand. I put it in the budget. We're raising money for that. That's just for 25 young people. I'm trying to give more iPads away. I don't shy away from the cost of iPads because they
Mm-hmm.
are expensive.
Yeah.
I actually run to the problem by raising more money and letting people know this is what we're trying to do. And I think it's the same when it comes to hiring you. How do you encourage your clients to think about the investment that they're making when they're hiring you or someone like you, or hiring someone to take care of their financial statements?
I'm very hands on. So every month when I put together because you should have financial statements every single month. They're not just quarterly or yearly; they should be done every month. So one of the things I do that I personally feel that I'm different from my other counterparts is that I'm more of a hands-on approach. I want you to understand what I am doing so that you can better explain that to funders. So I'm not just going to go, okay, thank you for your money for this month. Here's your statements. Have a nice day. I'll see you next month. I'm going to spend time with you to say, this is what this is. This is the importance. This is what you want to show funders. This is so it's more for me personally, and what I do in my practice is it is definitely more of a hands-on approach, and you don't get charged extra for that hands-on approach. I don't go and go, okay, I spent 30 minutes with you today. That's going to be $300. I'm not doing that. That's the difference that I provide personally versus some other people.
Yeah, and I want to kind of go down this road some more, Robert. You're talking about you do financial statements, and financial statements also are critical for certain funders, especially when you start going after major money, or even if you're going after non-major money, but you're going after it through a major funder.
That's
Financial
right.
statements are still going to be required of you. One of the things I've been telling people, especially newbies who can't seem to find the money for anything, they want everything for free and never use any of the advice that they get. I've been advising them to do the following. Let me know how you feel about this.
Okay.
People are so quick to go to GoFundMe, and I can't stand the conversation about it
Yeah.
because it's a non-sustainable strategy when you start to raise money. And then somebody said it best, but you can't go back and raise money for the same project because really it feels as though those platforms are used for those one-time investments, not for perpetual funding.
Hmm.
So I've been advising clients to use a strategy that I've been using for years. You hear all wealth gurus talk about it. I told people to tithe to their nonprofit. Now, this is in no way telling people don't tithe to their church. As a pastor, look at me, look at this camera, guys. Do not tithe to your church. Trust me, that's not what I'm saying. But it's the principle, right? Where if you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, you read The Richest Man of Babylon, you set a tenth aside for God, you set a tenth aside for an investment,
Hmm.
keyword investment, you set a tenth aside for savings. What if you viewed that investment tenth as your nonprofit donation every paycheck? And if you look at that, I've been telling people all week that tithe can be used to pay for rent, whatever you can afford. Because most people they know you're starting out. What can you afford? That can be used to pay a Robert Jones. Tell me what you can afford, and I tell you what I can do for you. That can be used to pay for a Dr. Clark. It can be used to get all types of things rolling. Are there other strategies you can advise newbies to think about when they are coming to you and saying, well, I don't have any money to pay you? What else can they do to raise quick, easy, consistent, sustainable money to pay for services that you provide?
That's funny you mentioned that because I run into that a lot with the newbies, right? And I don't have any children, but I can't tell you how many baby showers I've been invited to, right? And those people expect a gift. I've never met the baby. I don't know what he or she gonna be like, but I'm investing my money into this baby who I don't even know, right? So
Yes.
why not take the same approach? And you may have seen this on social media. Take the same approach with business showers.
Love it.
You got all these friends that say they love you. You got,
Love it.
I don't know how many friends you got on Facebook. 5,000. I think the friend button is like
It's 5,000.
addicted to people. They just start pressing the friend button, right? Invite all them people who say they're your friend. Invite all those
Yeah.
family members who say they love you, right? And ask them, this is what I'm trying to do. Even if think about this, if you invited 50 people and they each gave $25, that's and all you did was speak for 30 minutes about what you did. Imagine what that could do.
Listen, this is turning into a fundraising podcast. Because listen, I want to give somebody the solution to this. First of all, I love that idea. But
Okay.
instead of $25, what if you had a business shower, which I love the
In the
idea,
shower, yes.
and you just like any other shower, wedding, bridal, baby shower, you create a wish list. And if Robert Jones,
Mm,
for the sake of argument, costs $300 an hour,
there we go.
and you need 3 sessions throughout the
Okay.
year, how about you put that on the list? And for someone's asking, well, what platform can I use, Dr. Clark? Go to doodle.com, DOODLE.com, create, which is free. You get a free account, create a survey. And when you create it, once somebody checks off that they're going to pay for Robert Jones' service, no one else can check it off. I think that's an interesting way of paying for services,
I
right?
like that.
Because
Okay.
now, or they can just say pay for one of 3 sessions with Robert Jones, pay
Mm,
for one of 3 sessions with Dr. Clark, pay for my rent for 2 months, pay for startup furniture. I don't want your hand me downs.
mhm.
I actually preached a sermon yesterday about, oh man, you need to hear it. I preached a sermon yesterday about not giving nonprofits handouts, hand me downs and handouts,
Yes.
because we don't need your crappy handouts. It's a whole sermon on it. Got to listen. I'm gonna send you the link when we're
Okay.
over, when it's over.
Okay.
But I think the idea of like raising these things from a business shower is a cool concept. What else? I mean, what else can you suggest that people do to figure out how to generate revenue, pay for services that you provide, etc.? What can they do real time right now?
I would say that's definitely one of them. As far as another one, um, just tapping into, most of the people still work a 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes your company will match what you donate.
Bro, speak on it.
So
Speak on it. Speak on it.
where I used to work,
Yep.
at the big four, they would match up to $2,500 a year, a year. So all I had to do was go through this platform they had,
Yep.
put
Yes.
in put in the nonprofit EIN number, and
Yep.
donate toward it, and they would send that. If I donate 25, they would send another $25 to the account the same day.
Listen, that strategy has actually disrupted the United Way model, because United Way
That's
was
right.
the platform, and because more for-profit entities want to invest where their employees spend their money and invest,
Mhm.
they will match, which is a great idea. There's a much more advanced strategy that we can talk about offline that I've been
Okay.
utilizing relative to that. But for the average person listening,
Hmm.
that has to be it. Or even a day of service. Your company may have a
Okay.
day of service, and if they don't, recommend it.
That's right.
And where do you suggest we go to for a day of service? I got the perfect place for us to go,
That's right.
where we can go clean up, serve, give away, donate, whatever the
Mhm.
case may be. And just tell your employer, listen, I've started this charity, this nonprofit, and we're doing this because we see a need in the community. We would love to have you invest to be a part of. The worst they can say is no.
Right.
The best that can happen is sure,
Yeah.
right? Just put it
It's
out
real
there.
simple.
This
Yeah.
is real simple. So we just gave 3 fundraising ideas. Tithing. Here's the other thing about tithing to other your nonprofit that I've been telling people.
Hmm.
Ask friends to tithe to your nonprofit for 6 months with you. Ask 5 people. Listen, Robert, I'm a tithe to my nonprofit for however long. I'm
Hmm.
asking 5 of my good friends, would you consider tithing to my organization for 6 months, consistently every paycheck? How much is it? It doesn't matter. Whatever your tithe is, it's up to you. Set it and forget it. And when you do that, get a credit card system that allows people to just automatically give for six
That's right.
months.
That's right.
Boom. So when a funder asks, well, what money do you have in the bank? How much have you been raising over the last 6 months?
Hmm.
Instead of saying, I got nothing, can you help me? You can tell them we raised $10,000 over the past 6 months from individual giving.
Yeah.
And heck, do it again.
That's right.
Do it
That's
again.
right. That's right. Yeah. I think that's the problem. Some of the newbies run into is that I laugh when they actually use the term, I don't want to ask people for money.
But
But
don't
I'm
get me
like,
started. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
what? Right? That's your
Woo!
whole goal. That's the
Raise
whole
what?
goal.
And whether you're a for-profit, nonprofit, you're asking for the
Right.
sale. If you sell a T-shirt,
Right.
you're asking for money in
That's right.
exchange for the T-shirt
That's right. You always go ask for money. People ask for money every day,
every
right?
day.
But at least you have a purpose,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
I think people could really learn from that. They need to kind of get out of the mindset. They got to go from the heart of it. Use the heart to push it, but you got to have the mindset of the business mindset to incorporate in there. You just have to.
Man, I can go on about
I
this.
know. I know.
So let's jump back to the 990 for a moment.
Sure.
Savvy people know to look at 990s for all types of reasons. We may have some people in here who work for a nonprofit, but don't know that when they're going to the next job, they need to look at the 990 to look at the financial health of the organization. Talk to us about the story the 990 tells.
Mm,
Because I can tell you, I have studied 990s. I've looked at 990s. I look at multiple year 990s. I can look at the trends, highs and lows of an
that's right.
organization, and can pretty much fill in the blank about the leadership, about the culture, about the strategy or the lack thereof. Talk to us about what you know, what you believe the 990 tells about a nonprofit organization.
Good question. So when I've sat at the table with people who donate a lot of money to nonprofits, and they've been doing it for years, and they study that like a Bible, right? They look at part three of the return, which is the program service accomplishments. That's one of the parts they look at. What have you been doing? So we talk about impact reports. We talk about what are you doing with this business, right? You want 50 grand from me, but why would I give you 50 grand if I don't know what you're doing? So that 990 return really showcases that. And you want to make sure you put all the data you can think of in there, right? We've helped 50 kids go from poverty to millionaires. Like that means you're doing some big things, right? So what that tells me as a funder is when I give you this money, you're going to make an impact in someone's life. And that's what you really want to focus on. The second thing is when you look at the expenses of a nonprofit. So you look at the revenue, nonprofit bring in, let's say $1 million, right? That's the standard, $1 million. But I look at the expenses and I look at, okay, you have a CEO, that's great, but he made $400,000. Who's the CEO? Well, the CEO is actually the founder. Okay, nothing wrong with that. That's normal. You know, he's not the president and the founder, right? He's just he's not the CEO and the president. He is simply just the CEO. Okay, no problem. They voted him in. Great. Why is he getting paid 40% of revenue? That tells me something is wrong. It tells me you probably don't have an accountant. You probably don't have a lawyer, and you don't have a tax person. That tells me you got three things that you don't have, right? So you can see the draft. That's terrible when we see things like that. That makes a person automatically not want to give you. That's the one thing that they will not do is give you money because of something like that.
But that's also true for for-profit companies too, man. Like you
Yeah,
can't.
true enough.
I mean, you
True
can't
enough.
have your CEO making 40% of the revenue coming in. Like that's
Right.
just
Right.
not happening. Now
Right.
he or she may own stock of that value, but dude, like
That's
no,
true.
that doesn't make
Yeah.
any
But
sense.
we see that with a nonprofit. That is red flag. It
Yeah.
may not be a red flag to the IRS because the IRS can kill us how much you pay them. But somebody who wants to give you money
Right.
and grant right, I mean, like all that. Oh yeah, that's yeah.
I mean, and I think the broader point you're speaking to too. I think which this is the extreme case you're talking about, but to take that amount of money and not use it to build a team
Oh boy,
is a bad idea. I mean, you can't do this by yourself, man. You need a team.
you really do. Yeah, you really do. Seriously, especially with for-profit entities, they're mostly selling products, right? So when you think of like a nonprofit, it's so much more work and so much more involved
Mm-hmm.
physically that you have to have a team.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're bringing in money like that, you really, really should be hiring out. Really should be outsourcing, especially the accounting and tax and attorneys and consultants. You really should.
Uh, Another topic around
Okay.
financial statements. Where should nonprofits invest their money? Because these financial statements tell a story. Where should they be spending their money?
Program
The
service,
Say it one more time.
program services,
Okay.
right? So if your program, whatever your program is, majority of it really should be going back into that purpose
Mm-hmm.
of why you have a nonprofit. I'm assuming did I answer your question with that?
No, yeah, you did. Because I was actually going to go into, because you're absolutely right. I'm also thinking about back end services, back house services, CFO, CIO, quality assurance, technology, HR. How does, when you put together these statements, what percentage on average do you notice that those administrative support services or positions kind of take up on a financial statement?
Good question. So, with the 990 itself, you have three different categories when it comes to expenses. You got program services, management, and fundraising. So, what I truly push toward is 70% should be program services, 30% should be management. You don't really see a lot of fundraising unless you're like a gigantic organization. Um, but it really, to me personally, I say a 70-30 split. Now, that CEO, CFO, and all of those good people, uh, some of that, some of those allocations could be linked to program services. Because
Mm-hmm.
as you know, when you're new and starting out, people are wearing multiple hats.
True.
So if you find out, okay, the CFO, he does all this accounting work and he does everything with numbers, but hey, every Saturday he helps with the program. Dock that. Make sure
Yep.
you figure out, okay, let me figure out. He spent 10 hours today. Let me figure out how that's program service expenses.
So what Robert's talking about, for those that don't know, if you took my class, if you have not, and you take my class, how to create a nonprofit budget to pay you to,
Mm-hmm.
it's free within the masterclass academy. If not, there's a separate fee for it. But we talk about, Robert, how to spread across the cost of administrative salary of a CEO, CFO, whatever, across program if they're working in a program, which is absolutely right, especially if you're smaller. It's much easier to do that, where you can
Oh,
take a
yeah.
portion of the full salary of administration or management and bill it back to the program.
Very true. Very
Yeah.
true. And I think, sometimes again, this comes with hiring somebody with experience so that they can help you with that. And
Listen, man.
it just does. I mean, it's a very complicated return. It really is, honestly. I'm not even joking. And
Yeah.
I've been doing it for 10 years. And it's a complicated return because a lot of it is based on scenario. So as you know, right? So when I get a client, I say, please call and ask Robert, can I do this? Versus, hey, guess what I did? Is that okay? You like, no. So I wish you would have called me. But a lot of it is just scenario based.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I think you're saying it right, man. I think one of the things that frustrates me when we're communicating online is when the newbies or people who are truly ignorant don't have answers to problems that we've faced or
Mm,
have resolved. Because there are people that saying nonprofits can't make a profit. True or false? Is it true or false?
that's 1,000% false.
Fake news. You
Yeah,
can make a
literally.
profit.
Hashtag
It is
fake news.
fake. Trump said it right. Fake news.
Yes,
It is
yes.
fake news. Stop it. Fake news. Nonprofits can make a profit.
Yeah.
You can be paid. I when I launched my class, How to Create a Nonprofit Budget Pay You Too, I only launched that class a couple of weeks ago because there were people online saying I haven't taken a salary. I don't know if it was you that asked the question or somebody asked the question, have you taken a salary yet? And a number of people that said no astounded me. And a
Yeah.
lot of people said, well, how? I'm like, bro, all right, you know what? Let me do this class. A week later, hosted the class, done. Because it's just not necessary for you to not draw a salary or even a stipend in
A
the early
stipend.
days.
A stipend.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And
Big
let's talk
difference.
about
Yeah.
that. I mean, how do you advise your clients on the early days to draw some sort of payment from the nonprofit?
Talk to the board.
Mm-hmm.
Ask the board. The board not crazy. They know this is your baby and you the president of it. They
Mm-hmm.
realize that. They realize you putting sweat into it and maybe you taking off work to do what you have to do, right? They're not crazy. So if you present to the board, hey, you know what? This is hurting me kind of like financially, right? You could easily say, I really, I need something for this. I can't keep doing this the way I'm doing it. Then
Yep.
you'd be like, okay, let's think of a reasonable stipend to give this person every month. That's beautiful, because when a funder, they're gonna ask you, wait, you doing 80 hours of work? Wait, you don't have a job? Yeah, I got a job too. Wait, so how you doing 80 hours of work and 40? That's 120. So that just doesn't make sense. So you definitely want to have that conversation with the board.
So let's help them out, Robert. There are a couple
Reasonable
ways.
stipend, reasonable.
There you go. So if you cannot get a salary, you can be put on a reasonable stipend.
Yeah.
Reasonable can be defined, whatever that means. Here's another strategy, which is a form of a stipend, but I think is also reasonable. Monthly gas mileage.
Yes.
You get gas expenses
Yeah.
covered. I think the federal rate is 50 cents a mile, whatever the case may be.
Hmm.
That's a reasonable expense to cover.
That's right.
Another option is an expense account set on a budget. Hey, we're going to give you $1,000, $2,500 a month to spend however you feel the need to spend it just for you, which is a form of a stipend. And we'll make sure it's funded every month. The beautiful thing, and I said this to someone online, the beautiful thing is it doesn't matter how much it is, whether it's $500 a month, $100 a month, doesn't matter. The act of the
Right.
board doing this proves that they see value in you.
Right.
It shows you to stay encouraged to build this thing. And it also sets the course that I must be compensated. Now, of course, it's a different conversation once you start getting into larger numbers,
Of
salary,
course.
overhead
Hmm.
costs, 401k, healthcare insurance, all that stuff. It gets a little
Yeah.
different at that point. But it's about setting the tone that, hey, from the very beginning, I need a salary. If you're starting a business, for profit, nonprofit, got to set the tone. You need a salary, man.
That's right. That's right. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally
So
agree.
we covered quite a bit in our short time together. If people want to engage you, hire you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
So my website is rptaxassociates.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. So rptaxassociates.com is one way. Yep.
RP Associates, rptaxassociates.com.
Yes, sir. Yep.
rptaxassociates.com. That is the way to get a hold of Robert Jones. Robert, thank you so much, bro.
Oh,
Have
thank
you ever
you.
wondered how large nonprofits consistently generate millions of dollars? Have you ever wondered how to write the perfect grant or how to successfully manage a grant or even how to find money beyond grants? Hi, my name is Dr. William Clark, and I'm the creator and instructor of What You Should Know Before Applying for Grants. This masterclass has over 28 modules of training, and it comes with tools, tips, and tricks on how to generate significant money for your nonprofit. Some students have been fortunate enough to build six-figure programs, and others have been fortunate enough to triple their fundraising results because of this masterclass. Whatever your fundraising goals are, this masterclass can help you achieve them. To register your seat, simply go to mysixfigurefunding.com. That's mysixfigurefunding.com, and you'll be taken immediately into our student portal where you can access all of our trainings. You can take the trainings on demand, at your own pace, and at any time. You even can interact with other students and me all online from the comfort of your home or your office. If you want to secure your seat today for this masterclass, what you should know before applying for grants, simply go to mysixfigurefunding.com. Again, that's mysixfigurefunding.com. And I'm looking forward to learning with you and growing with you as you achieve your fundraising goals for your nonprofit.